Well, all right, let's talk about the New England Patriots and who they should draft at number 3 overall. Now, if you're a big fan of this channel, you might be saying, didn't you make a video like this like a week ago? Why are you doing this again? Well, okay, yeah, I made a video, and you can check that out on this channel if you want, kind of discussing the Jaden Daniels versus Marvin Harrison Jr. debate, because that seems to be the most common debate, and that seems to be what most people are thinking the Patriots should do. But I thought of maybe an outside the box strategy they could consider as well. So first, the two most obvious strategies that people are talking about. This is the one I see the most common, I would say, which is something along the lines of get Jaden Daniels and then try to get two good wide receivers or something like that. Get some weapons for Daniels, as the Patriots have a real, lack of offensive firepower right now. But adding Ladd McConkey and Keon Coleman, those are just the two top receivers at that point. Who knows what exactly will happen? But, it's a deep wide receiver class. This is an option to kind of help out your young quarterback. Now, there is some debate as to how good Jaden Daniels really is. Some people think he's the best quarterback in this class, I've heard. But, there's a lot of people who are even saying second best quarterback in this class. I'm someone who's a bit lower on him, but that's fine. Quarterbacks are a lot of projection based, and I totally could be wrong. But, there are some people who don't see him as the elite level prospect that should be drafted with number 3 overall, in which case, usually what people are saying is they should do the following. You do something like this, which is you draft Marvin Harrison Jr., and then in the second round, you get whatever quarterback is still there. So Bo Nix, I went with here, just again, it doesn't have to be Bo Nix, but you hope a quarterback that's one of the good quarterbacks falls to you. Maybe even do a slight trade up if you really want to, get that 5th-year option, trade up with the Chiefs or something like that. But, hopefully you're able to, get a solid quarterback prospect, maybe not quite as good a prospect as Daniels in your mind, but you're getting an elite wide receiver to, hopefully an elite wide receiver prospect, I should say, to pair with your young quarterback, and then still drafting up, whatever wide receiver is available in round 3. Kind of the idea is that, okay, what's the difference between Daniels and Bo Nix in this case as prospects? How do you view each of them? I do have Daniels as a higher prospect than Bo Nix, but do you think the gap is big enough that it's worth not taking Marvin Harrison Jr. as well? That's kind of the two main arguments I see. As I said, I have kind of an outside the box strategy though. What if they went with neither? And that seems insane, but just hear me out for a second. What if you did something like this, where you go Brock Bowers in the first round with your first pick? Now, PFF hates this. They say it's a D+, so they're not a fan of it. But, the logic behind it would be you get a elite level prospect at a different position, and you're still getting a quarterback and a wide receiver. This is, you're checking every box right here, and, again, putting Penix in a better situation than you would be putting Daniels because, you're getting hopefully an elite weapon in Bowers and still getting a wide receiver. This would be a bad idea. This would not be a good idea. I said this is an idea I had, but this is not exactly true. This would be a bad idea because that's just a reach for Brock Bowers at 3. It just is. There's better prospects on the board. There's, higher value plays than Brock Bowers. It's never good to draft for need. Even in this unique situation where it could make some sense, it's a bad idea. But you don't have to draft elite prospect at 3 here, and I chose Bowers. Really, what I meant is an elite non-wide receiver. So what if they did this? Or the top part is what we have to pay attention to first. What if you traded back with, again, you have to find a partner, right? But let's say, for example, the New York Giants, they decided that we want a quarterback. We're done with Daniel Jones. They're trading up, and you're not getting a future first. You are getting a future second, along with a second this year and a third this year. And this is maybe the preferred strategy, I think. Again, completely, who knows? It's not a video game. Teams aren't always willing to deal just because you want to make a deal. But if you could do something like this, you could still go non-wide receiver or quarterback with pick number 6. Get Joe Alt, that was the guy I decided to go with in this analogy. And again, you don't know at this point who's exactly going to fall to you. You could get Romeo Dunze if you still want an elite wide receiver. But my logic is you get the non-wide receiver here, either Joe Alt or Brock Bowers, someone like that. You still get your quarterback in round 2, Michael Penix Jr., who I like as a prospect. I would be willing to spend that pick on him. And then with now multiple day 2 picks, still 3 more on the board, you just triple down on wide receiver and you say we got a whole new receiving core now. And then I think they could use a tackle, I suppose. They have Michael Onwenu back, but I suppose getting Joe Alt would help, right? That would certainly help things a little bit. You're now shoring up that offensive line, giving Michael Penix a good receiving core across the board. This might be a way to maximize value because, again, part of it comes down to how I view about getting a good quarterback in general, which only one part of it is getting the good quarterback prospect, getting the right quarterback. The other part of it is putting them in a situation to succeed. And I think for New England, it would be a mistake to just say, let's get the quarterback, and if he's good enough, he'll succeed in any situation. I think you want a good situation. And I don't know if all 3 of these wide receivers would work, or even if 2 of them would. It seems very unlikely that none of them will work, and you're probably helping out the situation a lot. Getting someone like Joe Alt, who feels like a bit of a can't-miss prospect, potentially doing something like this, I actually think could be an interesting strategy. I don't know. I'm interested in hearing what you guys think, because I don't have a definitive, yes, this is the correct strategy. Just an interesting kind of wrinkle that they could go with as well. Again, to kind of reiterate exactly how I view why I'm viewing things like this, the logic behind it is quarterbacks tend to play better when they're in a good situation. And young quarterbacks tend to be, that's the number one indicator of success for a young quarterback is situation they're drafted into. So giving a better situation for whichever quarterback you drafted into is inherently valuable. I think the other, thing you have to accept is if you believe this is a deep wide receiver class. So maybe it's better to have multiple shots at kind of, the round 2 and 3 than just the one top guy. And then maybe it's worth, spending getting an elite non-wide receiver, non-quarterback, even if those are your 2 most, biggest positions of need. It still could make some sense given just how deep this quarterback class is and how deep this wide receiver class is. There's the obvious counter to this, which is if you really do, because again, part of me also, the last point I would say is that I'm a believer in there's no such thing as a perfect prospect. And no matter how much you've fallen in love with Marvin Harrison Jr. or with Jaden Daniels, the reality is we don't know. And even the prospects I've fallen in love with, you don't know. There are positions that you kind of have a better idea of knowing, like tackle, that tends to be pretty, a lot higher hit rate, but it's still not perfect. Like Evan Neal, a lot of people thought would be good. He struggled, right? So you never do know. There's no such thing as a perfect prospect, and a lot of times it is better to have more shots, which is part of why the strategy could make some sense. But at the same time, you are intentionally missing out on either a really good quarterback prospect or a potential generational wide receiver prospect. That's where things get a little bit I know, yes, sure, getting multiple other picks, that's valuable for sure. And again, in the Giants trade scenario, they would have a 2nd-round pick as well that they're adding here. But again, is that worth it? To me, if you can't get a trade down partner, the answer is absolutely not. Just draft either, I would probably draft Marvin Harrison Jr., but draft Jaden Daniels if you like him better. That's totally fine. But if you can get a trade partner, I don't think it'd be the worst idea in the world to not get either of those guys. I think they'd still be okay. But yeah, that's kind of what I think about all this. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.